Alright, today we are making a Rosaria guide because it was voted on and I guess let's begin, yeah? For Rosaria, I'd say Rosaria should be played more as a cryo off-field sub DPS, but you can still run Rosaria as a physical damage dealer if you're really early or new to the game and you need someone that outputs a decent amount of raw physical damage. Next is her kit. Her auto attack, it's a 5-hit auto attack combo. There's nothing special to it really. Okay, so this would be Rosaria's auto. Zhongli auto. Zhao. Zhangling. Right, so for most spear user, they have a 6-hit combo. Zhangling and Rosaria has a 5-hit combo, but if you can see, Zhangling has a lot of small hits. Or generally, spear user has a lot of the hits where they hit multiple times in a single swing, which makes the attack look faster. And it makes Rosaria auto feel slower and a bit, well, heavier, I'd say. Her individual auto attack hits harder by default, but you know, they're slower, which is there, right? Okay, so if you hit a singular large hit versus hitting multiple hits, but they all add up to the same damage number, right? So for example, 100 damage one time versus 10 damage 10 times, right? The singular large hit will be less affected by defense and enemy resistance, and the small hits are more affected by it. Next is her E. So Rosaria E, Ravaging Confession, she teleports behind an enemy and hits them. It's 6-second cooldown, it hits them twice, you teleport behind an enemy. So for bosses, the only boss you can teleport behind is Tartaglia. You can't teleport behind any other bosses. Well, for normal enemy, there's only 3 enemies that you cannot teleport behind that are not bosses, which are the Rune Guards, Rune Hunter, and Hilichurls with a giant shield. So for the shield Hilichurl, if he shields up and he faced me with the shield, I can't teleport behind him. For Rune Guards, I can't teleport behind Rune Guards, and for Rune Hunters, you can't teleport behind Rune Hunters, yeah? And those are the only 3 enemies, well, normal enemies aside from boss enemies that you can't teleport behind. Every other enemy in the game you can teleport behind, and I'll go over why that's important in a bit. As for the targeting and the distance of the teleport, you don't have to face an enemy to teleport behind them. You can face the other way, and it will still teleport you behind them. It's an auto target, and it selects the closest enemy you can go behind. You don't have to look at them. Like, nothing personal, kid, kinda meme, yeah? Her elemental skill generates 3 energy particles always. It's 3 cryo energy particles, so 3 cryo energy particle would be 9 energy if you're on the field, and 5.4 if you're off the field, assuming you have 0 energy recharge, yeah? Which is, you can go here and I'll show it. If you're on the field, it's 3 particles, so same element, that'll be 9. If you're off the field, it'll be 1.8 times 3, so it's 5.4 energy with 0 energy recharge. Rosaria ult is called Rites of Termination. Essentially, you place down a field that does cryo damage for the duration. It ticks once every second or so, and it does cryo damage to all enemies within the aura. Her skills are very straightforward. It's a 60 energy cost, it's a 15-second cooldown. Now the important thing is, as I said earlier, why you want to hit enemy from behind with Rosaria is because her first passive at level 20 grants you 12% critical rate. This is important because Rosaria ult can snapshot, so if you were to attack buff Rosaria with Bennett field, you drop Rosaria ult. Even if you walk outside of the field of Bennett's ult, Rosaria ult will still maintain the benefit of Bennett's attack buff throughout its entire duration. So it works similarly to her level 20 passive as well. If you were to hit an enemy from behind, using Rosaria E, and you get the extra crit rate, and you press your ult right after, for the entire duration of your ult, you gain the crit rate, so it will always crit, yeah? Her level 70 passive is, after casting her ult, all allies except Rosaria gains 15% of Rosaria's crit rate for 10 seconds. This crit rate cannot exceed 15%, so, you know, at max you build 100% crit rate Rosaria, yes? So let me showcase the snapshot, yeah? So, if I were to do this, attack buff with Bennett, and then go for Rosaria, and just drop my ult. Even if I walk outside of Bennett ult, Rosaria ult will always do the 17,000, because it already snapshotted Bennett's attack buff when I was casting it. And also the crit rate that I have at the moment I press the ability. So I can just move outside the field and it'll still do the damage, right? The increased damage. And that's basically TLDR of Snapshot. TLDR of Snapshot is any ability that is deployable that you can place on the field that lasts for a certain duration. You can attack buff and steroids everything else before, and you drop the ability. It doesn't matter if your previous buff expire, as long as that ability is there, it will still do more damage, yeah? So, based on how her passive works, it's clear that Rosaria was meant to be kind of like a crit feeder, right? She gives your team the extra crit rate, yeah? Rosaria's Constellation. The first Constellation, Unholy Revelation. When Rosaria does a critical hit, her attack speed is increased by 10% for 4 seconds. This is when I was talking about Rosaria can be built as a physical damage dealer if you're really early on in the game and you need someone to carry you with some raw physical damage. Some of her Constellation, well, 2 of it, kind of helps with that, but I'd say this Constellation I rarely use. Her second Constellation, Land Without Promise, increased the duration of her ult by 4 seconds. Now, without this, the duration of her ult only lasts 8 seconds, and add another 4, that'll be 12. You can see how stupid that is. I feel like this Constellation is... it's odd, right? Like, it's like Zhangling. It's OP, right? It's Zhangling increased Pyronado duration by 40%. Porg! I mean, why don't you just say add 4 seconds? You know? It's not that hard. It just makes more sense. You don't make people do math about it. But yeah, basically it's 50% more duration on her ult. C3, just increase levels of your E. C4 is... I'd say Rosaria's C2 and C4 are absolutely disgusting. C4, Painful Grace. If your Ravaging Confession elemental skill, your E ability crits an enemy, it gives you 5 energy particles. Keep in mind that Rosaria E is on a 6-second cooldown. It's a 6-second cooldown ability, and it generates 3 energy particles, right? So 3 energy particle would be 3 times 3 if she's on the field with 0 energy recharge. That's 9 energy plus 4. If she's off the field, as in you just press EQ on Rosaria and then swap, that'll still be 1.8 times 3, so 5.4 energy plus 5 energy. Every time you press your E, if you have 0 energy recharge and no one else is helping you with any energy recharge, right? So, essentially, what the C4 does is, every time you cast your E, it's like you're gaining double energy. In a way, if you play Rosaria on a double cryo team or a triple cryo team, if you have... So I think the closest example right now is Rosaria on a Eula comp, right? Rosaria in this comp needs less than 100% ER to get perma ult. That's how disgusting it is. As long as you're Diona's on Favonius or Sacrificial, yeah? Her C4 is just... it frees up... Basically, building crit is building ER for her, essentially. Now, C5, increase her ult damage. Well, her ult level by 3, and C6. Enemies that get hits by her ult, their resistance get reduced by 20% for 10 seconds. And since this lasts, if you unlock C6, right, this will last 8 plus 4, right? So that'll be 12 seconds. This debuff will last... You can maintain this debuff for 22 seconds, right? Because her ult lasts 12 seconds, and this debuff lasts 10. The last tick of her ult will proc it again. So as long as it attacks an enemy, right? So you can basically maintain resistance reduction on an enemy for 22 seconds. And, well, 22 seconds is more than enough time for you to get your ult back. So it's safe to assume that if you're really playing Rosaria for physical damage reduction, you have perma ult anyways. Well, not even physical damage reduction. Rosaria just has perma ult regardless. Right, so that's her skills done, yeah? Oh, never mind, I forgot one. So, Rosaria's third passive, if you really wanted it, at night, from 18 to 6, you increase movement speed of all your party members by 10%. This does not take effect in domains or abyss, and it's not stackable with other buffs with the same, right? So Rosaria movement speed buff doesn't stack with herself. I don't see this passive being useful unless you're playing the hide and seek minigame. But yeah, that's all her passive, right? Next, for artifacts. For artifacts. For Rosaria artifact, I'd say if you're running a cryo build, then you can run for a full Blizzard Strayer set for the extra critical rate. This crit rate doesn't increase Rosaria crit rate. Imagine the enemy has a crit resistance of 0, and you have this set, and the enemy has a cryo debuff. Basically, they're minus 20 crit resistance, if that makes sense. It doesn't snapshot her ult, but it's a debuff, essentially, right? Other than that, you can also run Noblesse for the extra 20% damage from her ult. You can run Rosaria on a full Noblesse set, just to make her act like a buffer, right? A crit buffer and an attack buffer. That works as well. But for me, I run Blizzard and Noblesse. You can run, well, Noblesse Gladiator, Blizzard Gladiator, that also works with the Gladiator set, just for the extra attack percentage bonus, that also works. And for physical damage, you can run a full Gladiator set. A full Pale Flame set also works on Rosaria for physical damage carry, or you can run 2 Bloodstain, 2 Pale Flame on Rosaria. Now the problem is, even though Rosaria E, it does hits twice, you don't instantly stack Pale Flame set only with Rosaria E. Because there's this little line saying you can only get 1 stack once every 0.3 seconds. So, even though it hits twice, you don't get instant stack. But Rosaria can easily maintain it because her E is a 6-second cooldown and the buff lasts 7 seconds, yeah? As for the set bonus earlier, someone had a question, right? Your Rosaria ult does gain benefit from the 2-piece of the Noblesse set for the entire duration of her ult. For the 4-piece, Rosaria ult alone, like, for the 4-piece Noblesse set, right? It's not like when Rosaria press ult, her burst gets the bonus. You get the buff after, so it doesn't snapshot that. For Rosaria talent priority, I'd say go for your ult first, and then your E, and ignore your auto if you're running for a cryo support build. If you're running for a physical build, of course focus on your auto, then Q, then E, right? For weapon choices, for Rosaria, any of the 5-star option work. For the highest damage possible, you run Staff of Home. Or you know what? Might as well. I'll just run through all the weapon. Small disclaimer. Very, very small disclaimer. I'm not free to play. You're seeing like max performance shit, okay? Very small disclaimer. That my damage might not be relatable. Very small disclaimer. Right, so for Skyward Bride, it does around 10,800 damage per tick, yeah? And next, I will try this, yeah? For Primordial Jade Cutter, you have to full stack it. Without stacks, it does really damage. Primordial Jade Spear does around 14, right? Next, I don't think anyone is gonna... Do I try Vortex? You know, I'll try Vortex. If I have a barrier, it does 15,800. Then again, it does have less crit rate. And because it's snapshots, even if my buff duration expire and I don't have a barrier anymore, it still does that damage because, you know, snapshotting. Wait, that's not too bad then. Wait, that means it's not bad on Rosaria. What the fuck? Yeah, basically, and you know, I'd say that any 5-star weapon on Rosaria is good, right? For 4-star weapon, like, I only have this level, yeah? Lithic Spear level. I don't have this in this level. For Homa, Homa just does the most damage, right? What the fuck are we expecting? Homa just does the most damage. But I don't have 2 Homa, so Homa stays on Zhongli. Homa does 15, but it doesn't need to stack. Like, it doesn't need to stack up, unlike Vortex, and it doesn't need to stack up, unlike Jade, right? It does the most damage without stacks. So for all the 5-star weapon for this glorious Whale Rosaria guide. Now the reason why I don't run Homa on Rosaria is that, well, I don't have 2 Homa built, right? Well, I don't have 2 Homa basically. And the other reason is that I'm so deep in Copium because I spent a ton of money on Standard Banner to get 2% crit rate for the Skyward Spine, and if I don't use it, I'll feel this crippling depression that like, oh god, why the fuck do you do it, right? So, that's why I use Skyward Spine on Rosaria. My reasoning is that it has decently high base attack, like the highest base attack of any 5-star spear. It has good energy recharge, and it has crit rate. But without that, I would recommend just using Homa if you want pure damage, Primordial Jade if you want the extra crit rate to crit feed for your team. If you really Copium, you use Vortex. For 4-star weapon, for physical damage, you can run Crescent Pike or Dragon Spine Spear. Crescent Pike is a lot better for overall DPS. Dragon Spine Spear is better if you want just, you know, EQ auto once or twice, proc the passive, and then swap, right? Favonia should be a very good option for her because Favonia's Rosaria, if you have C4, you basically get your ult back almost instantly. I'll show you, I guess. A singular E should get me around 40% of my ult back. Yeah, it's around 30-40% of my ult back on a crit. And this Favonia's Lance is level 20, so if you level it up, you get around 26% more ER, and you should get your ult back after 2 Es. Wow, this is R5, but the cooldown of Favonia's Lance is 6 seconds, and the cooldown of Rosaria's E is 6 seconds. You can see how this ends. She just has ult back to back, right? She always procs the Favonia's passive, and I think Favonia's is one of the better 4-star weapon option for Rosaria. Just because of her crit rate, yeah? Her crit rate buffing kind of mechanic and playstyle. Right. For other 3-star weapon option, you can run... yeah, no, don't run Lithic Spear. I mean, it's okay, I guess, but it's fine. Crescent Pike for physical. I talked about that already. Other than that, Blackcliff Pole is a decent option if you want the extra crit damage there, but the best one should be if you are willing to get the Battle Pass. The Deathmatch, it has 36.8 critical rate at level 90, and for Rosaria's main job as a crit feeder, it's amazing on her. So for my current Rosaria build that I have on her, I'm running Rosaria on Blizzard Noblesse, and I'll show you my artifacts. 1121, 7.8 27, 9.7 21, 14.4 11.7, and then 15.7 21. That's my current Rosaria build on Noblesse Blizzard. I have 74 plus 74 plus 90. And I'm running, if I were to run a 0 crit rate weapon, so if I were to run like equipped like Crescent Pike, my stats without a crit rate weapon would be 79 140. If I were to use my normal stuff, this would be it. So 95 140. So if I go my Rosaria EQ, my Rosaria will have 107 crit rate, and my Fischl will have 107 and 190, and then my Eula will have 88. How much ER on jungling is optimal? 170? Okay, listen. If people start asking for my jungling build after the Rosaria video, like, I will maul so hard. But yeah, that's how you play Rosaria on a reverse melt comp. I'd say Rosaria is A tier character, or if I were to put it, 4 out of 5? Because she does her job off field, she's there to support allies as well as offering decent damage on her own, right? Throughout the entire duration. She's a good free-to-play character for early game physical damage, and for late game elemental damage, she's kind of versatile in that way as well. So I'd say if there's ever a Rosaria banner, it would not be a bad choice to invest onto her, yes? Plus, you know, Uber.